Marcus had always believed in discipline, honor, and service. As a Marine sniper, he had spent years far from home, facing challenges most people could not imagine. Today, he was back in the city he grew up in, walking the familiar streets with a calm, steady pace. He was wearing his dress uniform neatly pressed, the metal shining under the morning sun. To him, this uniform represented years of dedication, hard work, and sacrifice. The courthouse was a few blocks away. Marcus could feel the weight of the moment pressing gently on his shoulders. He had come for a routine hearing, a matter he thought would be simple. Yet there was a nervous tension in the air that he could not shake. He passed a small cafe on the corner and noticed children waving at him. Marcus smiled and nodded politely. Moments like these reminded him why he had served, to protect people and their way of life. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere changed immediately. The high ceilings, the echo of footsteps, and the hushed voices made the place feel serious. Marcus walked toward the entrance, showing his identification at the security desk. The officer behind the counter glanced at his uniform, his eyes widening slightly at the medals. "Good morning, Marine," the officer said, nodding respectfully. Marcus returned the nod and continued down the long hallway lined with polished wood and portraits of judges from decades past. As he entered the main courtroom, he noticed a few people already seated, murmuring quietly among themselves. Marcus took a deep breath, focusing on remaining calm. In all his years of training, he had learned to control fear, anger, and impatience. Today, those skills would be tested in a very different way. Suddenly, two officers approached him. "Sir, please come with us," one said in a formal but firm tone. Marcus stopped, confused. "Is there a problem?" he asked politely. The officers did not answer, instead moving closer and preparing to handcuff him. Marcus raised his hands slightly, showing he would not resist, but shock and disbelief filled the room. He had served his country with honor, and now he was being treated like a criminal. Whispers ran through the courtroom. People looked up from their seats, noticing the scene unfolding. Some shook their heads, others pulled out their phones to record the unexpected moment. Marcus's mind raced. He tried to remain calm, repeating in his head the words of his training. "Stay focused. Stay disciplined. Stay respectful." One officer muttered, "This is just procedure, sir." Marcus nodded, holding his composure even as his wrists were gently secured. He could see the confusion and concern in the eyes of the people around him. He did not shout, did not argue. Instead, he took a deep breath, reminding himself that this was only a moment and moments pass. Then, just as the tension reached its peak, the doors at the back of the courtroom opened. A figure walked in slowly, his uniform perfectly pressed, his posture straight and commanding. It was General Harper, a 4-star general in the Marine Corps. The room fell silent instantly. All eyes turned toward him, and Marcus felt a mixture of relief and curiosity. General Harper approached the bench, stopping just a few feet from Marcus. His face was calm yet serious. He looked at the officers and then at the courtroom full of people. In a voice that carried both authority and respect, he said, "This Marine has served his country with honor. He does not deserve this treatment." The officers immediately began to remove the handcuffs, their expressions a mix of respect and apology. Marcus rubbed his wrists, feeling the sudden weight lift not just from his arms but from the entire room. People clapped softly, some standing to show their admiration. Marcus looked at General Harper and nodded slightly, a gesture of deep gratitude. In that moment, he felt the recognition he had long deserved. Not for fame, not for glory, but for service, dedication, and integrity. The courtroom, once tense and uncertain, now carried an air of relief and respect. Marcus knew that today would be remembered, not for the shock of being handcuffed, but for the honor of having someone stand up and recognize the truth. After the handcuffs were removed, Marcus stood quietly for a moment, letting the tension drain from his body. He felt a mixture of relief and disbelief. The courtroom, which had moments before been full of uncertainty, now seemed to hum with a sense of justice restored. People whispered quietly, exchanging looks of admiration. Marcus could see that the crowd had started to understand the magnitude of what had just happened. General Harper remained near the front of the courtroom. His presence alone commanded attention. He had walked through decades of military service and knew how to recognize true courage. Marcus could feel the general's eyes on him, steady and reassuring. The room was silent, and it seemed as if even the walls were listening. "Marcus, you have served this nation with honor," General Harper said, his voice calm but firm. "No one here should question your integrity or your service." Marcus nodded slightly, humbled by the words. He had never sought recognition for his work. For him, service had always been its own reward. Yet in this moment he realized that acknowledgement mattered. It reminded him that honor was seen and valued, even when circumstances were difficult. A young officer in the courtroom stepped forward. "General, what should we do next?" he asked politely, his voice steady despite the earlier tension. General Harper looked at him with a soft, reassuring smile. "Apologize. Explain the mistake. Ensure this never happens again," he said. The officer nodded immediately, turning to address the courtroom and the people who had come to watch the proceedings. Marcus noticed a woman sitting near the front, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked nervous, but her eyes were full of respect. Her name was Clara, a journalist who had come to cover the hearing. She had been following Marcus's story for months, and she knew the importance of the moment. Clara raised her camera and took a careful photograph, wanting to capture not just the image, but the emotion of the room. The officers approached Marcus and spoke quietly, explaining the error that had led to the misunderstanding. Marcus listened carefully, nodding occasionally. He did not feel anger, only a quiet sense of relief that the truth was finally being acknowledged. Mistakes happened, he knew that. What mattered was how people responded when they realized them. General Harper addressed the courtroom again. "We honor our service members not only with words but with action," he said. "Today we take action by correcting this mistake. This Marine's record, his service, and his dedication are beyond question." Marcus felt a sense of pride swell inside him. It was a quiet, deep pride that came from knowing that someone of General Harper's experience recognized his service. The courtroom atmosphere shifted. People who had been tense and uncertain now smiled and nodded to Marcus. Some whispered words of encouragement. Marcus looked around and felt a sense of connection with the community he had always wanted to protect. It was not the kind of recognition he sought while overseas, but it was meaningful in a different way. Clara lowered her camera and approached Marcus carefully. "Sir, may I ask a few questions?" she said respectfully. Marcus nodded. She wanted to tell the story of the Marine who had faced an unfair situation, but remained calm and honorable. Marcus agreed, knowing that sharing his experience could inspire others to act with respect and fairness in the future. As the hearing continued, Marcus noticed the general step back and observe quietly. General Harper did not need to say more. His presence alone had shifted the tone of the entire room. Marcus thought about all the times he had faced danger overseas. Those moments had tested his courage, but today had tested his patience and his faith in people. He realized that both types of challenges were important. When the hearing finally ended, Marcus walked out of the courtroom with General Harper standing nearby. People in the hallway paused to acknowledge him. Some shook his hand. Some offered quiet words of thanks. Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had served his country, and now he had also witnessed the power of respect, fairness, and accountability within his own community. After leaving the courtroom, Marcus walked slowly down the courthouse steps. The sunlight felt warmer than usual, as if the world itself had acknowledged the relief he felt inside. Reporters and cameras were nearby, but Marcus ignored them for a moment. His thoughts were on the events that had just unfolded. He had never imagined that a routine hearing would turn into a moment of public attention and reflection. General Harper walked beside him, his presence steady and calming. Marcus noticed how effortlessly the general commanded respect, not through fear but through dignity and understanding. "Marcus," the general said softly, "today was not just about correcting a mistake. It is about showing everyone that service, honor, and courage deserve recognition at all times." Marcus nodded quietly. The words resonated deeply. He had fought in difficult places, faced challenges no one at home could see, and yet, the true test of respect could happen in the simplest ways, even in a courtroom. As they reached the street, a small group of people approached Marcus. They were neighbors, people who had known him from childhood. Their eyes shone with admiration and relief. One man, Mr. Lewis, shook Marcus's hand firmly. "We are proud of you," he said. "You have always been an example for all of us." Marcus smiled, feeling the warmth of the community he had grown up in. It was different from the battlefield, yet no less important. Here, Honor and courage were recognized not by medals alone, but by trust, respect, and the way people treated one another. Clara, the journalist, followed closely, notebook in hand. She had already captured the images she needed, but now she wanted to hear the story in Marcus's own words. "Sir," she asked respectfully, "how does it feel to have your service recognized in such a public way?" Marcus paused, thinking carefully. "It is not about recognition for me," he said. "It is about making sure that fairness and respect are always upheld. I hope people see that mistakes can happen, but how we respond matters more than the mistake itself." Clara nodded, understanding the depth of his words. She knew this story would inspire many people, not just because of what had happened, but because of how Marcus had handled it with dignity. Meanwhile, the general continued walking beside him, occasionally nodding toward members of the public who wanted to show their respect. Marcus noticed children staring in awe at his uniform and medals. He knelt slightly to greet them, offering a small smile. It reminded him why he had chosen this path of service, to protect future generations, to give them hope and safety. The moment was quiet, yet it carried a powerful message. Courage and honor were not limited to battles overseas. They could shine in everyday life as well. When they reached a nearby park, Marcus stopped to take a deep breath. He felt the weight of the day lifting, replaced by a sense of peace. General Harper stood beside him, looking out at the open space. "Sometimes, Marcus," he said, "the greatest battles are not on the field. They are here, in the way people are treated, in the fairness of our actions, and in our respect for one another." Marcus nodded again. He had learned that lesson early in his military career, but today it had been reinforced in a completely unexpected setting. People passing by noticed the Marine and the general together. Some paused to wave, others offered quiet words of thanks. Marcus realized that his uniform, his medals, and his service were symbols, not just of personal achievement, but of hope and integrity. They reminded people that honor mattered, and that it could inspire respect, even when mistakes occurred. By the time Marcus reached the courthouse parking lot, the crowd had dispersed slightly, leaving a calm silence. He turned to General Harper. "Thank you, sir, for standing up today," he said quietly. The general smiled. "It is always the duty of leaders to protect those who serve," he replied. "You earned respect long before today. I merely helped to show it to everyone else." Marcus felt a deep sense of gratitude. As he drove home later that afternoon, Marcus reflected on the day. The events were unusual and they would be remembered, but what mattered most was the way people treated one another. Honor was not just about medals or recognition. It was about integrity, patience, and courage in every action. Today had been a lesson, a reminder that even in moments of misunderstanding, respect and fairness could prevail. The next morning, Marcus returned to his routine, but the events of the previous day stayed in his mind. The story of the courtroom had spread quickly, reaching people across the city. Marcus's phone buzzed constantly with messages of support from neighbors, friends, and even strangers who had seen the news. Despite the attention, Marcus remained humble. He had served his country quietly for years, and he preferred to let his actions speak for themselves. At the local community center, a small gathering had formed to honor his service. Children held handmade signs and teachers arranged chairs to accommodate everyone who wanted to attend. Marcus walked through the entrance, greeted with cheers and claps. He smiled warmly, shaking hands with people he recognized and nodding respectfully to those he did not. It was a different kind of mission, but the sense of responsibility felt the same. Here he was not leading a team into battle, but inspiring a community with courage and humility. Mayor Thompson stood at the front of the room, adjusting the microphone. "Today we celebrate a hero among us," he said. "Marcus has shown us that courage is not only on the battlefield, but in how we handle every moment of life with dignity and respect." Marcus listened quietly, grateful for the kind words. He had never sought recognition, yet the community's support reminded him that service extended beyond uniform and medals. It was about impact and about helping others feel safe and respected. Clara, the journalist, was present again, taking notes carefully. She watched Marcus interact with the children, answering questions about his experiences. One little boy asked, "Were you ever scared?" Marcus knelt down to the boy's level and smiled. "Yes, sometimes," he said gently. "But courage is not about never being scared. It is about doing the right thing even when you feel fear. The boy nodded thoughtfully, inspired by the simple truth in Marcus's words. Clara quickly wrote it down, knowing the quote would resonate with readers everywhere. Meanwhile, Marcus noticed General Harper arriving quietly at the back of the room. The general had chosen not to make a grand entrance, preferring to observe the event and support Marcus in a more personal way. Marcus felt a sense of pride seeing him there. It was a reminder that true leaders were not only those who commanded armies, but those who recognized and honored the courage of others. As the ceremony continued, a local officer stepped forward. "We would like to officially apologize again for the misunderstanding at the courthouse," he said. Marcus nodded, accepting the apology gracefully. "Mistakes happen," he said. "What matters is how we respond. Today we are moving forward together." His words carried weight in the room, inspiring everyone to reflect on the importance of fairness, patience, and respect. The event concluded with Marcus receiving a small token of appreciation from the community center. It was simple, a handcrafted plaque with words of gratitude. Marcus held it carefully, appreciating the gesture. It was not the recognition that mattered most, but the connection with the people who truly valued integrity and courage. He realized that the trust and respect of a community could be as meaningful as medals earned in service. After the ceremony, Marcus and General Harper walked outside into the cool afternoon air. The streets were busy with people going about their daily lives, yet Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. "You have made a difference, Marcus," General Harper said quietly. "Not just with your service overseas, but with the way you handled yesterday. People need role models, and you are one of them." Marcus nodded, humbled by the words. He had always done his duty quietly, but now he saw that courage could inspire others in unexpected ways. As Marcus walked home that evening, he thought about the lessons of the day. Life often tested people in ways that were unexpected. Some challenges were visible and dramatic, while others were quiet, subtle, and just as important. Marcus understood now that courage, integrity, and respect were not only part of service in the military, they were part of service in life. By staying calm, patient, and honorable, he had set an example that would be remembered for years. Before entering his home, Marcus paused for a moment, looking up at the sky. The sun was setting, painting the clouds with shades of orange and pink. He felt a sense of peace he had not felt in a long time. Life was not always easy, and misunderstandings could happen, but today had reminded him of the power of dignity, leadership, and community. He knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would face them with the same courage that had guided him his entire life. The following week, Marcus returned to his daily life, but the events of the courthouse and the community celebration continued to echo in his mind. People greeted him with respect wherever he went. In the grocery store, at the gas station, even in small shops, he was met with warm smiles and nods. Marcus had never sought recognition, but now he realized that his actions could inspire others in ways he had never imagined. One morning, Marcus received a call from Captain Allen, a friend and former Marine colleague. "Marcus, we are organizing a small ceremony at the local Veterans Hall," Captain Allen said. "It's a chance for the community to meet you, hear your story, and celebrate your service. Are you interested?" Marcus paused for a moment, then agreed. He had always preferred quiet service, but he understood the value of sharing experiences. Sometimes courage and lessons learned needed to be seen and heard to make a real difference. The day of the ceremony arrived. Marcus wore a simple dress uniform, polished shoes, and neatly pressed pants. He entered the hall to see a room filled with veterans, community leaders, and families. The walls were lined with photographs of past service members, reminders of the sacrifices and dedication that had built the community. Marcus felt a sense of connection immediately, knowing he was among people who shared his values and his experiences. General Harper was present once again, quietly taking a seat near the back of the hall. Marcus felt a wave of respect and gratitude for the general. He had not only supported him during the courthouse incident, but continued to serve as a mentor and guide. The general's presence reminded Marcus that leadership was not about authority alone. It was about support, encouragement, and recognizing the worth of others. Captain Allen stepped forward to address the crowd. "Today we honor Marcus not only for his service overseas, but for his strength, patience, and courage in every situation," he said. Marcus listened quietly, feeling the words settle in his chest. They were not about fame or recognition. They were about integrity, the kind that came from doing what was right even when it was difficult. As the ceremony continued, Marcus shared his experiences with the audience. He spoke of discipline, teamwork, and the importance of keeping calm under pressure. He described how challenges could test people in unexpected ways, sometimes in the middle of a courtroom or in front of a community, rather than on the battlefield. The crowd listened attentively, absorbing every word. Children looked up at him with wide eyes, while older veterans nodded knowingly, remembering their own experiences. One young woman raised her hand. "Marcus, what helped you stay calm during the courthouse incident?" she asked. Marcus smiled softly. "I reminded myself of my training, my values, and the importance of patience," he said. "Courage is not only about action, it is also about holding on to integrity and respect no matter the situation." The room was quiet for a moment, then erupted in soft applause. Marcus realized that this simple lesson could inspire others to act with fairness and courage in their own lives. After the speeches, the crowd moved closer to speak with Marcus. He shook hands, answered questions, and shared encouragement. Each conversation was a reminder that service and courage were not just personal qualities. They were tools to inspire and uplift others. Marcus felt a sense of fulfillment that went beyond medals or recognition. This was about leaving a legacy, teaching by example, and showing that honor mattered in every aspect of life. As the ceremony ended, Marcus walked outside into the warm afternoon sun. The streets were alive with people going about their daily routines, yet he felt a quiet sense of connection. He knew that small acts of patience, courage, and integrity could have far-reaching effects. General Harper joined him outside, nodding toward the crowd. "Marcus, you have shown everyone what it means to serve with honor," he said. Marcus nodded humbly, understanding that leadership and courage were not about standing alone, but about inspiring others to stand tall as well. Later that evening, Marcus sat quietly in his home reflecting on the day. He thought about the challenges, the misunderstandings, and the victories that had shaped his journey. He realized that courage could appear in many forms, from the battlefield to a courtroom to a community hall. And most importantly, he understood that respect, patience, and integrity could change lives in ways that medals alone never could. Marcus woke early the next morning, the sunlight spilling gently across his room. He felt a quiet sense of purpose, knowing that the events of the past week had changed not only his life but also the lives of those around him. The courthouse incident, the community celebration, and the veterans' ceremony had shown him that courage and integrity were recognized in many ways, sometimes quietly, sometimes publicly, but always meaningfully. He prepared himself for a meeting at the local community center. This time it was not a ceremony, but a discussion about supporting young people and veterans in the city. Marcus understood the importance of giving back, of using his experience to help others avoid challenges he had faced. As he walked through the streets, people waved, smiled, and nodded in respect. Marcus nodded back politely, feeling the strength of community support and understanding. At the community center, a group of teenagers waited, curious and eager to hear from a real Marine. They had questions about discipline, bravery, and making good choices in life. Marcus looked at their faces, seeing hope, curiosity, and admiration. He knew he had a responsibility to answer honestly and clearly, to guide them with the same care he had learned in his years of service. "Courage is not just about fighting battles," Marcus began, his voice steady and warm. "It is about doing the right thing even when it is hard. It is about staying calm, respecting others, and keeping your values strong." The teenagers listened carefully, some nodding, some whispering to each other. Marcus could see that they understood the message, realizing that bravery and honor were not limited to military service, but were important in everyday life. General Harper entered quietly, standing at the back of the room. Marcus acknowledged him with a small nod, appreciating his presence. The general's example had always reminded Marcus that leadership was not about authority alone, but about support, encouragement, and respect for others. Today, Harper's presence reinforced the lesson Marcus wanted to share. Integrity and courage could inspire people at all ages and stages of life. A young girl raised her hand. "Marcus, how do you stay calm when things feel unfair?" she asked softly. Marcus smiled gently. "It is not always easy," he said. "I focus on what I can control. I think about my values, and I remember that respect and patience can guide me even in difficult situations. Fairness is important, but how you respond is even more important." The girl nodded slowly, clearly understanding the lesson. Marcus felt satisfaction knowing that his experience could guide others. After the discussion, the group moved to small tables to engage in activities designed to build teamwork and trust. Marcus observed quietly, offering guidance when needed. He watched as the teenagers learned to communicate, support one another, and solve problems calmly. He thought about his time in the Marines, the lessons learned on the field, and the patience required in every mission. The skills of leadership, teamwork, and respect were universal, valuable in every moment of life. Later, Marcus stepped outside to a small gathering of neighbors and supporters. People came to shake hands, express thanks, and share encouragement. Marcus accepted each gesture with humility. He realized that the true reward of service was not recognition, but connection, understanding, and the ability to make a positive impact. Every conversation, every smile, every word of encouragement reinforced the power of respect and integrity. As the sun began to set, Marcus took a quiet walk through the park near his home. The children from earlier played nearby, their laughter bright and full of life. He remembered the lessons he had shared that morning. Patience, courage, and respect were always needed, not only in big moments but also in small ones. Marcus knew that the values he had practiced in the military and in life would continue to guide him and others, creating a ripple of positive influence in the community. Before heading home, Marcus paused to look at the sky, the colors of the sunset reflecting shades of orange, pink, and gold. He felt peace, fulfillment, and hope. The challenges of the past weeks had tested him, but they had also strengthened him. He understood that true honor was reflected not only in medals or recognition, but in the courage to act with integrity, to support others, and to inspire positive change wherever life placed him. Marcus woke early, feeling a quiet excitement in the air. Today, he was attending a citywide recognition event honoring veterans and community leaders. The courthouse incident and the weeks that followed had brought his story into the hearts of many, and the city wanted to celebrate not only his service but his courage, patience, and integrity. Marcus dressed carefully, ensuring his uniform was neat and his medals polished. This day was not about pride or glory. It was about sharing the values that had guided him for so long. When Marcus arrived at the event, the crowd erupted in applause. Families, neighbors, veterans, and city leaders filled the hall. Flags lined the stage, and banners hung proudly, welcoming those who had served the nation and the community. Marcus felt a mixture of humility and gratitude. He had never expected such attention, but he understood now that recognition was not just for him. It was for the lessons of integrity, courage, and respect that he hoped would inspire others. General Harper arrived shortly after, his presence steady and reassuring. Marcus acknowledged him with a nod, grateful for the guidance and support the general had shown since the courthouse incident. Harper smiled, understanding that this moment was as much about Marcus's leadership in life as it was about his service overseas. The general's quiet support reminded Marcus that true leadership was about lifting others, showing respect, and standing up for fairness at every opportunity. The mayor stepped forward to speak. "Today we honor a Marine who has served his country and his community with courage, patience, and integrity," the mayor said. "Marcus has shown us that true heroism is reflected not only on the battlefield, but also in the way we treat each other, in fairness and in respect for all." The crowd clapped, some standing to show their admiration. Marcus stood quietly, humbled by the words, but also proud that his message of integrity was being shared. During the ceremony, children from local schools presented Marcus with handmade cards and drawings. One card read, "Thank you for teaching us courage." Another said, "You are our hero." Marcus accepted each gift with warmth, kneeling to meet the children at eye level. He smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The medals and uniforms were symbols, but the true reward was seeing the values he had lived by reflected in the next generation. Clara, the journalist who had been following his story, captured the event carefully. She interviewed Marcus about the courthouse incident, the lessons he had learned, and the way the community had responded. Marcus spoke calmly and clearly, emphasizing the importance of fairness, patience, and integrity. He wanted the story to inspire, to show that courage was not only about facing danger, but also about staying true to one's values and supporting others. After the formal program, Marcus took time to meet with veterans and community members. He listened to their stories, shared advice, and offered encouragement. Every conversation reminded him of the power of connection, the strength that comes from understanding, and the importance of leading by example. Marcus realized that his role was not only to serve but also to teach, guide, and inspire others to act with courage and respect. As the event drew to a close, Marcus stepped outside into the late afternoon sunlight. The crowd cheered one last time, waving as he walked toward his car. He felt a sense of peace unlike any he had known before. The events of the past weeks, the courthouse misunderstanding, the support of General Harper, the community celebrations, had all combined into a moment of reflection. Marcus understood that life would always present challenges, but courage, integrity, and patience would guide him through every situation. Before driving home, Marcus paused in the park near his house. Children were playing and families walked by enjoying the evening. Marcus smiled quietly. He had served his country, faced challenges, and experienced moments of misunderstanding and recognition. But most importantly, he had inspired others, reminding them that respect, patience, and honor were values worth living by every day. As the sun set, casting shades of orange and gold across the sky, Marcus felt content. Life would continue, with new challenges and new opportunities to show courage. But today he had seen the power of integrity, fairness, and community. Marcus knew that his journey was not just about his service. It was about leaving a legacy of respect, patience, and courage for everyone who would follow. And with that thought, Marcus walked home with his head held high, proud not for himself, but for the lessons that would continue to inspire others long after the day had ended. Marcus had always believed in discipline, honor, and service. As a Marine sniper, he had spent years far from home facing challenges most people could not imagine. Today, he was back in the city he grew up in, walking the familiar streets with a calm, steady pace. He was wearing his dress uniform neatly pressed, the medals shining under the morning sun. To him, this uniform represented years of dedication, hard work, and sacrifice. The courthouse was a few blocks away. Marcus could feel the weight of the moment pressing gently on his shoulders. He had come for a routine hearing, a matter he thought would be simple. Yet there was a nervous tension in the air that he could not shake. He passed a small cafe on the corner and noticed children waving at him. Marcus smiled and nodded politely. Moments like these reminded him why he had served, to protect people and their way of life. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere changed immediately. The high ceilings, the echo of footsteps, and the hushed voices made the place feel serious. Marcus walked toward the entrance, showing his identification at the security desk. The officer behind the counter glanced at his uniform, his eyes widening slightly at the medals. "Good morning, Marine," the officer said, nodding respectfully. Marcus returned the nod and continued down the long hallway lined with polished wood and portraits of judges from decades past. As he entered the main courtroom, he noticed a few people already seated, murmuring quietly among themselves. Marcus took a deep breath, focusing on remaining calm. In all his years of training, he had learned to control fear, anger, and impatience. Today, those skills would be tested in a very different way. Suddenly, two officers approached him. "Sir, please come with us," one said in a formal but firm tone. Marcus stopped, confused. "Is there a problem?" he asked politely. The officers did not answer, instead moving closer and preparing to handcuff him. Marcus raised his hand slightly, showing he would not resist, but shock and disbelief filled the room. He had served his country with honor, and now he was being treated like a criminal. Whispers ran through the courtroom. People looked up from their seats, noticing the scene unfolding. Some shook their heads, others pulled out their phones to record the unexpected moment. Marcus's mind raced. He tried to remain calm, repeating in his head the words of his training. "Stay focused. Stay disciplined. Stay respectful." One officer muttered, "This is just procedure, sir." Marcus nodded, holding his composure even as his wrists were gently secured. He could see the confusion and concern in the eyes of the people around him. He did not shout, did not argue. Instead, he took a deep breath, reminding himself that this was only a moment and moments pass. Then, just as the tension reached its peak, the doors at the back of the courtroom opened. A figure walked in slowly, his uniform perfectly pressed, his posture straight and commanding. It was General Harper, a 4-star general in the Marine Corps. The room fell silent instantly. All eyes turned toward him, and Marcus felt a mixture of relief and curiosity. General Harper approached the bench, stopping just a few feet from Marcus. His face was calm yet serious. He looked at the officers and then at the courtroom full of people. In a voice that carried both authority and respect, he said, "This Marine has served his country with honor. He does not deserve this treatment." The officers immediately began to remove the handcuffs, their expressions a mix of respect and apology. Marcus rubbed his wrists, feeling the sudden weight lift not just from his arms but from the entire room. People clapped softly, some standing to show their admiration. Marcus looked at General Harper and nodded slightly, a gesture of deep gratitude. In that moment, he felt the recognition he had long deserved. Not for fame, not for glory, but for service, dedication, and integrity. The courtroom, once tense and uncertain, now carried an air of relief and respect. Marcus knew that today would be remembered, not for the shock of being handcuffed, but for the honor of having someone stand up and recognize the truth.